In this problem, we're looking at capital budgeting risk and risk-adjusted discount rates. Okay, so we have a company that has a portfolio A with an expected internal rate of return of 10% and a standard deviation of 2%. And the company is considering adding project B with an expected internal rate of return of 11% and a standard deviation of 3% in its portfolio. Also assume that the amount invested in portfolio A is $700,000 and the amount in portfolio B is $200,000. So let's stop there and let's put those variables in. So we'll have that. So let's see. Portfolio A has an expected internal rate of return of 10%. We'll put that there. And I believe they said standard deviation of 2%. And project B has expected IR of 11 and 3 for standard deviation. So we'll put that there and that right there. Now, we want to, in these cells right here, we want to put the total amount that is invested, which is $900,000 right here and right here. And then portfolio A has the larger amount, $700,000. And this is going to give us our percentages, okay, so our weights actually. So let's put that right there because I have a formula in here and here that if you look up, it just divides the amount invested by the total, and that's going to give us our two weights. So now we have an expected internal rate for the combined portfolio of 10.22%. Okay, if we can continue, we see that the degree of correlation between the returns A and B is 0.9. So we need to put that in right here. Right here, 0.9. And what else? Let's see. So then we need to calculate 1, 2, 3, and 4, which we have. And what is the change of the coefficient of variation as a result of adopting project B? Okay, so we need to jump down here. And we see that the change is a slightly higher risk of 0.0128. So, you can put in all these answers, A, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and B, right down here in your blue answer box. Now let's go back and look at the next part, C. So assume that the firm classifies projects as high risk if they raise the coefficient of variation of the portfolio 2 percentage points or more, low risk if they actually lower the coefficient of variation 2 percentage points or more, and average if the change is less than 2% in either direction. So we're asking, in what risk classification would project B be? Would project B be? And it looks like we're in between 2% change because we have a change of well less than 2%. So we would call that average risk. Okay, now next thing we want to do is we want to look at our risk-adjusted discount rate. So the required rate of return for the average risk projects for the company in this problem is 13%. The company policy is to adjust the required rate of return downward by 3% for low risk projects and raise it 3% higher for high risk. Average risk projects are evaluated at the average required rate of return. The expected cash flows from project B are as follows. Now, so think of this high risk discount rate, which is going to be 13 plus 3, which is 16%. Think of that 3% as the risk premium. So whenever investors perceive that the risk is higher, that there's more of a chance that they're not going to get their money back for whatever reason, then they're going to demand a higher return. Just like if you go to get a loan and you've got really good credit, you're seen as a low risk, so you can get a lower interest rate. And if you have a bad credit rating, you're seen as a high risk, so you have to pay a much higher rate of interest on a loan. So that's how that works. So let's put in these cash flows. So 200,000 negative 200,000 and 55, 55, 55, and 100. So let's jump down here and put in our cash flows. Right here. And at a discount rate of 13% right here. Actually, not 1,300%, 13%. Let's do that. There we go. Okay, so now we see that with these, let me make sure I got that right. 200, okay, good. We see that the net present value at the average risk is going to be negative, right? And then if we want to see what is it asking here, so it's going to at the average. Okay. I don't know if it asks the internal rate of return. I don't remember, but let's just see here. If I have it in here, I mean, I have the formula in here for it. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see. Calculate the NPV. Okay, no, we're just going to be calculating the NPV, but we can still look at the internal rate of return, which by just simply putting in these cash flows right here. So let's do that really quickly. So, and you can see that at this discount rate of 13%, the net present value is negative, and the internal rate of return is lower than the discount rate. So the average risk discount rate would not be advisable. So let's look at the high risk. The high risk is just going to be even more. It's going to be more negative, and this isn't going to change. Okay, so but it's certainly. So you can see, oh, I know why I put this in here, because you can see that you're only going to be positive if you get below the internal rate of return on this investment. So if we go down to 13 minus 3, if we go down to our low risk, which is 13, which is 3 points below the average, which is 10, you'll see that that's going to be positive. So put that right here. That's what I did. Okay. Now we have a positive net present value, and that is really because the internal rate of return on this project, which doesn't change by changing the discount rate. What changes is the net present value when you change the discount rate. So when we have a cost of capital below the internal rate of return here, then we are going to have a positive net present value. So when you plug in those values, you can answer question the last one here. So you just want to calculate the net present value at each of these three discount rates. So the average is 13%, the high risk is 16%, and the low risk is 10%. Okay, I believe that about does it for problem. Well, you have to put in all your answers here. But anyway, that finishes up problem 1022.